Stephanie adjusted the bright yellow scarf wrapped around her head and gave her reflection in the mirror a final glance. She was ready for the small gathering her best friend Sarah had arranged at her house. It wasn't anything to elaborate, just a casual evening with a few close friends. Stephanie had known Sarah since their college days, and their bond had only grown stronger over the years. Sarah had been there through thick and thin, and for Stephanie, visiting her friend's home always felt like coming back to a place of comfort. Stephanie reached Sarah's house and rang the doorbell. She could hear laughter and chatter from inside. As the door swung open, Sarah greeted her with a warm hug, pulling her into the lively atmosphere of her home. "Stephanie, you look amazing as always," Sarah exclaimed, guiding her inside. The house was bustling with familiar faces, people Stephanie had met over the years through Sarah. There was an air of familiarity, of shared memories and inside jokes. After exchanging pleasantries with a few guests, Stephanie found herself standing in the kitchen, pouring herself a drink when a familiar voice called out, "Auntie Stephanie." She turned around to see Sam, Sarah's 22-year-old son, grinning at her. Stephanie couldn't help but smile. Sam had grown up before her eyes, and now he was a young man full of confidence and charm. He had inherited his mother's warm, welcoming smile and his father's sharp wit. "Sam, it's been ages." "How have you been?" Stephanie asked, genuinely delighted to see him. "I've been good, Auntie, busy with university and all that." "You know how it is," he replied, leaning against the kitchen counter. Stephanie nodded, of course. "Your mom talks about you all the time. She's so proud of you." Sam smiled, but there was something different about it. Was it admiration or something else entirely? Stephanie brushed the thought aside. He was like a nephew to her. Nothing more. "Thanks, and hey, you look great, like really great." Sam said, his tone slightly more earnest than usual. Stephanie laughed it off. "Oh, stop it, you're making me feel old," she teased. But there was a part of her that felt slightly uncomfortable, almost flattered by his compliment. The evening went on with Stephanie mingling with other guests, catching up on life and work. Every now and then she notices Sam watching her, but she dismisses it as a harmless curiosity. After all, she was like family to him. Later that evening, Stephanie excused herself to use the bathroom. As she washed her hands, she heard a faint knock on the door. She turned off the tap, wondering who it could be. "Yes," she called out. "It's me, Sam. Can I come in for a second?" His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that made her pause. Stephanie hesitated. Is everything okay?" Yeah. Just wanted to talk to you." Without all the noise outside, Stephanie's heart skipped a beat. Something about the situation felt off, but she couldn't pinpoint what it was. Before she could respond, the door opened slightly and Sam peeked in. He didn't look like the playful young man she had spoken to earlier. His eyes were intense, searching her face as if trying to find something unsaid. Stephanie stepped back instinctively. "Sam, what are you doing?" He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. I don't know, I've been wanting to talk to you alone all evening." About what? Stephanie's voice was cautious now, her senses alert. "About how amazing you are. About how much I admire you. You've always been there, Auntie Stephanie, always. And I've been thinking." He trailed off, his words hanging in the air, laden with unspoken implications. Stephanie's mind raced. Was this really happening? Was Sarah's son the boy she had watched grow up, trying to tell her something more than just friendly admiration? She took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice steady. "Sam, I think you're confused. I'm your mother's best friend. Whatever you're thinking, it's not right." But Sam didn't back down. He took a step closer, his gaze unwavering. "I'm not confused, Stephanie. I know what I'm saying. I felt this way for a while now. I just didn't know how to tell you." Stephanie's heart pounded in her chest. This wasn't the Sam she knew. The playful, innocent boy she had seen grow up was gone, replaced by someone she barely recognized. She needed to end this conversation, and fast. "Sam, I care about you. But this can't happen, it's wrong. You know that." For a moment he looked hurt, as if her words had struck a deep chord. But then he nodded slowly, almost as if he had expected this response all along. "I know, I just needed to say it to get it off my chest." He turned and left, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Stephanie stood there, her mind reeling what had just happened. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She couldn't tell Sarah about this. Could she? It would destroy their friendship. But one thing was clear. This evening had taken a turn she had never expected, and she wasn't sure what to do next. Stephanie took a deep breath, splashing some water on her face. As she stared at her reflection, Sam's words echoed in her mind. How had such a simple evening taken such a confusing turn? She had watched him grow up, and now suddenly he was looking at her in a way she couldn't explain. It was unsettling. Determined to move on, Stephanie rejoined the gathering, forcing herself to act natural. Sam stayed on the other side of the room, chatting with friends, acting like nothing had happened. She exhaled, relieved that he seemed to have let the moment pass. The rest of the evening flowed smoothly. Stephanie chatted with Sarah about their lives, work and plans for the future the way they always did. It felt almost normal again. But a sense of unease lingered in Stephanie's mind. As the night came to a close and guests started to leave, Stephanie began preparing to say goodbye. She was almost out the door when Sam approached her again. His expression was calm, but there was something in his eyes, an intensity she hadn't seen before. "Can we talk for just a minute?" he asked, his voice low enough that no one else could hear. Stephanie hesitated but nodded. Stepping into a quieter corner, she didn't want to make a scene, and maybe he just wanted to apologize. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry about earlier," Sam began. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." Stephanie felt herself relaxed lately. "It's okay, Sam. I'm glad you understand that it was inappropriate." "We're good." Sam nodded but didn't walk away. His eyes flickered with something unspoken. "I do get it, but there's something I need to say. I've always admired you, Stephanie. It's more than that. Now I don't know why, but it's not going away." Stephanie's heart sank. She had hoped his earlier words were just a passing moment of confusion. But hearing this unsettled her even more. "Sam," she said softly, trying to keep her voice steady, "I care about you too. But this isn't something that can happen. I need you to understand that." For a moment he didn't respond. His expression softened and he nodded slowly. "I know." Stephanie gave him a small smile and gently pulled away, her heart heavy. "Take care of yourself, Sam." With that, she left the house, hoping the awkwardness would end here. But deep down she knew this situation wasn't as simple as it seemed. The days following the gathering were tense for Stephanie. She hoped the awkwardness with Sam had ended. But Annie's nod at her telling Sarah would only complicate matters and possibly ruin their friendship, so she decided to keep it to herself. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was unresolved. A few weeks later, Sarah invited Stephanie over for a quiet lunch. It was a relaxed afternoon, and for a while, Stephanie felt at ease again. They chatted over coffee about Sarah's upcoming vacation plans, and Stephanie started to believe she'd worried for nothing. Then Sam walked in. "Hey, Auntie." Stephanie, he greeted, his tone light and casual, showing no sign of what had happened. "Hi, Sam," Stephanie replied, trying to keep her voice steady. His gaze lingered on her just a second, too long before he turned to his mother. "I'm heading out for a bit," he told Sarah, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek. "Okay, have fun," Sarah said, waving him off. As he left, Stephanie exhaled slowly. Maybe she was overthinking things. Sam seemed perfectly normal, and Sarah hadn't noticed anything unusual. Perhaps everything really had gone back to normal. A while later, Stephanie excused herself to use the bathroom. She was washing her hands when her phone buzzed, with a message from an unknown number. "Can we talk? It's Sam." Her heart sank. How did he get her number? She hesitated before typing a response. "This isn't appropriate, Sam. Please respect my boundaries." She hoped that would be the end of it. But when she opened the bathroom door, she almost collided with Sam, who was standing just outside. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, glancing around nervously. "I had to see you," he said softly. "I know what you said, but I can't stop thinking about you." "Stephanie." "Sam, this is wrong." "I've told you that," she replied, keeping her voice low but firm. "I know," he said, his expression conflicted. "But I can't help how I feel." Stephanie's mind erased. She needed to end this without causing a scene. "You need to leave. This can't continue." For a moment, Sam just looked at her, then nodded, his face falling. "I'm sorry," he whispered, before turning and walking away. Shaken, Stephanie rejoined Sarah in the living room. Sarah was still talking, completely unaware of what had just happened. Stephanie forced to smile, but her hands were trembling. She needed to get out of there. After a few minutes, she made an excuse about an urgent errand and left the house. Her heart pounded as she drove away. How would things spiral so quickly? What would happen next? She knew she couldn't keep this to herself much longer. But the thought of telling Sarah made her stomach turn. Stephanie was trapped in a situation with no clear solution, and she didn't know how to get out of it without hurting everyone she cared about. In the days that followed, Stephanie couldn't shake her anxiety. She avoided Sarah's calls, afraid she'd let something slip. She felt trapped, knowing she had to say something, but dreading the fallout. It was exhausting carrying the secret alone. One evening, after an especially stressful day at work, she decided she couldn't keep dodging Sarah. She picked up the phone and dialed her number, trying to steady her nerves. "Hey, Steph, I've been worried about you," Sarah said, her voice warm and familiar. "You've been so distant. Is everything okay?" Stephanie's heart pounded. This was her chance to come clean. She took a deep breath, but before she could say anything, her doorbell rang. She glanced at the clock. Who could be visiting her this late? "Hang on, Sarah. Someone's at the door," she said, grateful for the interruption. When she opened the door, her stomach dropped. It was Sam. His expression was tense, his eyes bleeding. "Sam, what are you doing here?" she whispered, stepping outside and closing the door behind her. "I had to see you," he said quietly. "I can't stop thinking about you. And I know you feel something too." "Sam, this is inappropriate." "You need to leave," Stephanie said, trying to keep her voice steady. Her mind raced. This was the last thing she needed. "Please, just hear me out," he pleaded. "I can't pretend like everything's fine when it's not. I need to know if there's any chance you feel the same." Stephanie's heart ached at the desperation in his voice, but she knew she had to be firm. "No, Sam. You're misunderstanding everything. I care about you, but this has to stop now." He looked at her, hurt flashing in his eyes. "I thought you of all people would understand." "Sam, you're crossing a line and it needs to end here. You have to respect my boundaries and our families. Please go home." For a moment, he just stood there. Pain and frustration etched on his face. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. Stephanie watched him disappear into the night. Her heart pounding, she leaned against the door, trying to calm herself. How had everything gotten so complicated? She had hoped this would end without drama, but now it was all falling apart. Taking a deep breath, she went back inside, trying to compose herself before returning to her call with Sarah. "Sorry, Sarah. I'm back," she said, her voice shaky. "Is everything okay?" Sarah asked, concern evident in her tone. Stephanie hesitated, feeling tears prick her eyes. How could she possibly tell Sarah what was going on? How could she explain without destroying their friendship? "I'm fine," she lied, her voice barely a whisper as she hung up. Stephanie knew she couldn't keep this up much longer. The truth was bound to come out eventually, and when it did, it would shatter everything. But for now, all she could do was brace herself for the inevitable.